Hi, my name's Randy Lack. I was founder and the president of new business at a company named Anew Climate. Anew is the largest environmental commodity company in North America, and specifically very strong focus on low carbon gas. So for today, I'm going to focus on the inlet feedstock into blue hydrogen. As part of our business, I don't want to shy away from this as well, so happy to answer any questions. We do also focus on the renewable energy aspect of it. So we're doing a lot now in preparation for 24/7 accounting for electrolysis starting in 2028, as well as interim supply into the electrolysis side. But I was asked to focus on the blue hydrogen side and really the feedstock side as it relates to IRA policies. I think taking a quick step back, we really are passionately focused on bringing down the cost of produced hydrogen and ammonia to end-use markets. In order to do that, we need to improve the life cycle of the hydrogen process as a whole. And the way to do that is really to look at the inlet capabilities of the feedstock reductions of the products produced. So just really quickly, Anew is the largest independent marketer of low-carbon gas in North America. Currently, we have over 60 projects that are producing low-carbon gas, everything from landfill gas, swine, dairy, wastewater treatment facilities, really all over the country. To date, our focus has been taking those renewable natural gas or low-carbon gas sources and moving them primarily to the transportation markets. In addition, we have a lot of voluntary buyers that have come, and I think that's the early green shoots of what we're going to see in some of the purchasing on the hydrogen side as well. So to date, we've moved over 12 million MMBTUs into the voluntary end user market. I think that's going to be, again, so that's universities, large tech companies, manufacturers, end users that are voluntarily purchasing these low carbon feedstocks as part of their operations. As they move to hydrogen alternatives, these are the companies that are going to be willing to pay premiums for thermal replacements. And I think you're going to see a lot in the data and tech community. So that's really going to be key to the overall. When looking at this, I think just want to highlight some keys. So really, this is feedstocks that are all over the country. One of the things that you're going to see in the presentation is that we can't reasonably put hydrogen where the low carbon feedstocks are. We have to aggregate them. They're smaller sources. I'll talk about sizing in a bit, but overall throughout the United States, we have over 300 operating low carbon gas sources throughout the country, but there's no cluster that can be reasonably directly connected to the facilities. If you look at 45V guidance into the IRA thus far, the only thing that they've deemed qualifying is direct connected landfill to a facility. Well, it's not actually realistic, and there's not enough feedstock to do that. So what we've done in the past and what's been approved under the renewable fuel standard, low carbon fuel standard, is we actually aggregate through multiple sources. We use the interconnected pipeline system, and then we're able to deliver via the pipeline system, via documentation, aggregate amounts to end users. And so that's where we'll need to go as this market actually takes off. Diving into it really quickly, low carbon gas can mean a lot of things, but when you're looking at it, you're looking at swine projects. So this is literally, pig farms, swine farms. Typically, these projects are really small and they come in hub and spoke. So what you'll see anything from 8 to 20 different farms that are collected in that model, tied in through an interconnected midstream gas system to one centralized gas plant. That is actually the lowest carbon intensity gas from the agricultural sector because it was the highest polluter historically. The range for the carbon intensity is because we really just don't know where, number one, if it will be included ultimately in 45V GREET, and then when it does, we still are expecting a re-review and a finalization of where that will land. So there's a range there. But those projects are typically 500 to 800 MMBTUs per project, so pretty small. And I'll talk about what that means relative to a large-scale hydrogen project in a moment. As I go through the presentation, I've done this presentation before where it took 2 hours. I'm not going to do that to you. So what I had to do is cut it down, and I'm going to try to isolate variables and just stick to like swine as an example of what it would take to actually link swine projects to a hydrogen project in order to participate in V if it goes that way. A dairy project, -70 to -100 CI. Those projects also range about 500 to 800 MMBTUs per project. And then wastewater treatment and landfill gas are about the same. Those are positive carbon intensity, but it's really important that those projects, number one, offer larger volumes, wastewater treatment 1,000 and 2,000 MMBTUs, good-sized landfills 3,000 to 6,000 MMBTUs, and that's actually on the bigger side. But we need large volumes of gas to basically match up with the hydrogen projects. When looking at the calculations, one of the things that's going to be important, I'll talk about, is that low carbon feedstocks go hand in glove with CCS and almost aren't economic without CCS. So we really do want cooperation between the inlet feedstocks of low carbon gas feeding the hydrogen or ammonia facilities. We want carbon capture and storage and need it on the back end, and I'll talk about that. And then also one of the benefits on all of this is that as you bring swine, dairy, wastewater, and landfill gas into a hydrogen facility and you have carbon capture and storage, or carbon capture, excuse me, what you have then is biogenic CO2. So biogenic CO2 at that point can be used with hydrogen for e-fuels, SAF, others. So there are other co-benefits in bringing this in, but the key is really bringing down the carbon intensity. And this is really where the rubber hits the road. So without carbon capture and storage, if you look at what is the sort of gross value of each one of these products, landfill gas is about $20 per MMBTU value to the hydrogen facility. If you look at it hitting the $3 per kilogram value, dairy gets to about $55 and swine gets to $100 per MMBTU. So that compares to natural gas today, let's just call it $4. So these are really high values, but this is really expensive gas to collect, clean, and process. So to give you an example, a dairy project is going to cost somewhere between $30 to $50 per MMBTU to clean. Gross value here is 55. It's going to be marginally valuable to the hydrogen facility because the hydrogen facility needs to make a margin there. That margin is their benefit on the tax incentive that's going to then bring down the cost of produced hydrogen at the end of the day. Swine, $106 per MMBTU. Even more expensive than dairy to produce. Those projects are going to run anywhere from $40 to $70 an MMBTU of production. And that's really large-scale projects to get those built. So again, there's not a lot of juice that's actually there for the project. So when you look at it, the value without CCS is there, and it can be sort of like an early small benefit to the projects where an ammonia or hydrogen plant could buy swine gas at $70 and the gross value of them is 106. There's a little bit of a margin there and it can benefit in bringing it down. But where it really kicks off is where it ties in with CCS. The value now jumps from 20 to 47 on landfill gas. To dairy, it's 133, and swine to 257 an MMBTU. The key to that is first of all, there's going to be a bypass of 45Q, so you're going to have to give up 45Q to get V. So you're going to need that big step up and that incremental. But it makes sense to do it if you can have surety of supply. Taking a step back and being, a climate-focused company, we're passionate advocates of this. And really the key is going upstream and capturing and remediating methane from these sources. You're remediating methane from swine, dairy, and landfill operations that would have or could have otherwise been vented in the atmosphere. That's what's really key. A lot of the difference, for those of you that aren't familiar on the carbon intensity side, the difference really is what would have happened to that methane otherwise. Landfills are required to capture, so their carbon intensity is higher, where dairy and swine are lower because they don't have that requirement to capture, and we want to incentivize that activity now. In the middle, you'll actually see blend rates. And again, one thing I'll highlight, so this is a blanket model. It's directionally correct, but it depends upon which facility it actually belongs to and what type of equipment they're actually using. But you can see landfill gas, 30% blend rate, dairy, 10%, 11% blend rate, and swine, about 5.5% blend rate. But when you take this to a hydrogen facility that's potentially using 200,000 MMBTUs a day, on landfill, you need 60,000 MMBTUs a day. You're talking about 20 to 30 landfill gas facilities. On swine, you do that math over again, and basically, this is how it works out. On the gas supply logistics for swine, you would need at least 20 swine facilities to match up with one hydrogen facility. So one of the keys is it's not reasonable to expect that gas is going to be directly connected to hydrogen facilities. So we're big advocates for what's called the book and claim delivery, making sure that we can use interconnected pipeline system to deliver to end users so that we can aggregate over large swaths of projects. So you're looking at an average of, let's just say, again, 300,000 MMBTU a day project. You're looking at needing something like 17,000 MMBTUs a day from swine projects for one large-scale hydrogen project. That's about the entire production from the US today. So we need significant growth to this space. The thing that excites me is the IRA is a meaningful incentive to go out and remediate agricultural and upstream sources while bringing down the cost of the end-use hydrogen. At the end of at concept and the way the legislation was passed, that was the original intent. And so we have an opportunity to really utilize this to have significant climate impact while bringing down the cost of hydrogen to the end user. So hitting that $3 per kilogram is really going to be key, but making sure we can tap into these fugitive methane sources, remediating these impactful projects is really going to be essential to making this market work. I really appreciate conversations about takeaway capacity because there just isn't enough, right? We need more of the demand conversations happening. In order to do that, we're going to have to bring down, at the end of the day, the cost of hydrogen. This is going to be a key way to do it. So from our perspective, in-house we have the CI modeling, we have the projects under management. We're engaged in conversations today about, depending upon how the regulations take effect, we can already deliver on meaningful supply for one or two projects. But that's what we're talking about. There actually isn't enough supply for all the projects that are out there. And we're pretty locked up until we have better certainty on the end regulations around V. The other thing that's going to be beneficial is you will see some stacking of value, which will be helpful because this is pretty marginal as it currently stands. So our hope down the line is, as you can move hydrogen to the transportation sector, there's a possibility that we'll be able to both tap into the IRA, but then bring transportation sector hydrogen and tapping into the renewable fuel standard as well, and or the biogenically derived CO2 that we can then look at e-fuels, e-jet, and others. It's going to take that to put these pieces together. The economics of these projects are tough. And what we've seen is we've already had 3 hub projects that have come out and said, if we can't tap into low carbon intensity gas, we can't build. It is part of the economic financing. And it's going to be essential to put a proper value on the upstream methane reductions overall to make these projects work. So from our perspective, and I didn't get into the advocacy side, I didn't get into where we're focused, but you absolutely have to have book and claim. You have to be able to connect all these projects together. You can't do it with a direct connection. The second part is that in order to properly remediate, we have to both incentivize the projects that are coming and grandfather the ones that have had good behavior. They put what I think is a little bit of an arbitrary piece in 45V on first productive use of methane. I think there's a lot of concern that people are going to produce more methane just because you're putting a price on it. And that we haven't seen that. In the low carbon fuel standard, there's been a price on methane now for over a decade. And we're not seeing groups produce more methane just because there's a value of methane. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't make sense to the farmer. Over 80% of the projects that are developed by independent third-party companies. It's not by the farmer. It's not by the landfill owner. These are independent third-party companies that are putting their money at risk to be able to provide the product to end use. We've talked a lot. I've heard a lot of people talk about certainty on incentives. I can't say enough about that. We need to rightly incentive climate reductions and remediation of these industries in order to do it right. And this, again, is hand in glove with CCS the hydrogen projects and delivering low-cost hydrogen to the end-use market. So right on time. So I'll be available for any questions, but thank you all for being here. Appreciate it.